First tonight, violent crime rose sharply here in the East Midlands last year. Our police forces also recorded a steep increase in serious knife offences, the highest since records began.
In contrast, there were fewer burglaries as criminals turned their attention to the internet. But whether they're up or down, do these figures tell the full story? Our social affairs correspondent, Jeremy Bull, has spent a day with a response team from Nottinghamshire Police.
I just gave the body armour on for today.
Kitting up for the late shift, Carl and Reese are heading out into Nottingham's estates, responding to calls about everything from missing children to violent attacks.
Every shift is completely different. We try our best not to use the Q word. It's a little bit of officer superstition that using the word quiet can change the fortunes of the shift.
And they soon get their first 999 call. A fight's broken out at a crowded supermarket. One more offence to add to the official crime statistics. Those figures dropped for many years, but recently recorded crime has started rising again. And today the Office for National Statistics said there was a further increase last year. Nottinghamshire's annual crime figures went up by 11%. The Leicestershire force recorded a 10% rise. And in Derbyshire, last year's crime figure increased by 6%.
The offender's not around the petrol station area.
At the supermarket, the suspect's gone. They're told a member of staff was punched as he tried to stop two men fighting after one accused the other of shoplifting.
Punches thrown, 5 o'clock in the afternoon in sunny Gamston, and they're fighting at Morrison's.
There's CCTV everywhere. So it's not going to be too much of a difficulty for us to be able to find out exactly who was involved in it.
And back at the police station, the air's thick with the smell of CS spray. 5 officers have restrained a man who appeared to have mental health problems, who came in to ask for help and then became aggressive. Violent offences rose sharply last year, up by 31% in Derbyshire, by 25% in Leicestershire and by 21% in Nottinghamshire. Almost half of those offences left someone with physical injuries.
The caller saying that there's constant hammering and banging.
Reese and Carl are responding to antisocial behaviour too. This complaint's about noisy neighbours.
It's been tagged as a hate incident, and the reason behind that is that the caller believes that it's being done on purpose because he's gay.
The man's kept a detailed log of times when he's been disturbed. Upstairs, the woman he's accused is out.
Have you heard any loud banging?
The man next door takes her side, and this won't be recorded as a crime. But across Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire, the police saw a 58% rise in stalking and harassment offences last year. Much of that was online. The 3 forces also recorded a 20% increase in robberies. And serious knife offences, threats and attacks with weapons rose by 15%.
We said if you cut the service, this is likely to happen. We warned them about stop search. If they tightened that, then the incidence of knife crime was likely to go up, and it has. And we were made to feel like pariahs for shouting and screaming about it at the time. And unfortunately, our fears and our concerns have come home to roost.
But there were fewer burglaries and thefts here in the East Midlands last year. These days, you're far more likely to get scammed online instead. And for Carl and Reese, another emergency call. This time a man's been shouting and banging on an elderly woman's front door.
Ladies stating that the male's trying to gain access into the property and has been throwing things at the house. Hey, are you all right, sir? We've had a call saying that there's an incident here. Have you been shouting or anything at all?
The man says he's an unpaid carer who was shouting because he was worried when he couldn't get in to check up on her. But the elderly woman doesn't want to speak to officers alone, and then they speak to the neighbour who says it happens regularly.
My worry is that there could be something not quite right with him not necessarily being an official carer, and conversations overheard by the neighbour about financial things. So I'll be putting a safeguarding referral in.
Of course, they'll never know whether that could prevent another crime statistic, but they're confident that at the very least it'll keep a frail pensioner safe.
Well, Jeremy is here in the studio. Really interesting figures. So has there been any response from the police?
Yeah, and essentially the devil's in the detail here. They say some of these figures are rising because of tougher crime recording rules, particularly that spike in harassment and stalking. They also say that some victims are now willing more willing to report crimes, particularly things like sex offences and hate crime, because they're more confident the police are going to deal with them. They do accept that there are some real challenges, particularly that rise in knife crime.
And what are they going to do about that? What's the plan?
Well, various things going on. Derbyshire Police say they're going to have knife sweeps in public places from next week, as well as targeted patrols. In Nottinghamshire, we've heard before, they already have a dedicated knife crime team. Now, that is targeting prime suspects using stop and search powers. The Leicestershire force say, look, they're dealing with rising crime with fewer officers and fewer staff. And if you look across the region, there are something like 700 offences being reported each and every day now. The police say, though, look, the chances of being a victim of serious crime are still very, very low.
OK, Jeremy Bull, thank you.